Joining us for today's call is the marketer who believes in the response rate of direct mail so much that it's even how he found his wife.
That's exactly right, Stephanie. I don't know if you said that I found my life or my wife, but I do not have a mail order bride, regardless of maybe some popular opinion out there. But she knows I'm a pretty big direct response believer just because, look at how specifically she had to be targeted there. That's just like a one of one. Well, except, of course, in Utah, but I didn't just say that. Anyway, welcome to the coaching call, everybody. I really appreciate you being here. This is one of the 3 that I do during a year that is just me solo. Lucky you. This is one of those. And I do want to mention before we get going here, this is your opportunity for fast-track learning. That's the whole reason that we have the coaching program. We talk about trends, coming movements, things that are going away from either disuse or lack of popularity or response, and, of course, time and money savers. And every one of those will be covered here today. And I also want you to be looking, as part of your coaching program, look for a survey from us on likes or changes, improvements you'd like to see. So just look out for an email and an announcement from that. We hope to get your input on that because this is, as I've said many times, your group. Now, on to today's show. I'm going to give a little bit of a recap on some of the marketing waves that got us here today, and I want you to be looking at slide and image number 1 there. I do this in these coaching calls to give you some perspective. You see, to show you that marketing isn't just a flavor of the week, but it's entirely reflective of where we are as a society, because marketing doesn't really do anything that pulls society. We're always sort of reflecting the trends, the likes, the reactions, the persuasion mode, and that's how marketing rises and falls. Now, I'll cover this very, very quickly, but about 15 years of helping contractors on nothing but their marketing has been an incredible whirlwind. When Hudson Inc. first started, we spent a huge amount of time telling people how to quit overspending in the yellow pages, if any of you even remember those. But this is where we began beating them at their own game. We started using direct response in that media, which had almost never seen it, so it was just almost like college sprinters running against an elementary school. It was fairly easy to outperform the rest of that crowd. And then we started publishing our annually updated Contractor Marketing Budget Calculator, which we still do to this day. Helps contractors see the other good media out there. And in 2004, as early as 2004, we added the relatively shaky new column called Internet Expense. And that's grown to include now not just that one column, but AdWords, other PPC applications, SEO, and social support. Now, the big losers in that shift were, as mentioned, the yellow pages and, to a large degree, newspaper, though there's still some validity there because print publications, yes, you heard it here first, like the other trend I'm about to announce, which has long since been established, a lot of print publications are actually coming back, and I'll point to that in another coaching call. There's vast data to suggest maybe not your daily newspaper is going to resurrect, but much of the printed matter certainly is. The one item a couple of other items that were the losers there were that television and radio percentages went down, though the costs per unit went down because of the proliferation of digital media and satellite radio, of course. So we had way, way, way more channels by which you could spread your message, but your percentage of the spend actually went down along with the cost. Yet there was one in all these different media that remained fairly constant, waning at its very lowest point in 07-08 following the anthrax scare and the rising infatuation with online marketing, and that was direct mail. It maintained a solid presence, even though some questioned its once proud validity, and then an interesting thing started happening to all of us. Email boxes started overflowing. Spam filters cut out even the good messages. Internet scammers and salespeople, and my contention, a lot of those were ex-Yellow Page salespeople, began overselling contractors on things they either didn't need, didn't understand, or both. We saw Google change its major platform. I'm not talking about detail, but actually the way it was delivered and the way they ranked people. They changed the major platform 6 times in 5 years, which wreaked havoc in the marketing world. And now for so-called organic rank, which has also lost its original meaning. It is actually very different now. If you're mobile media friendly, and if you just happen to buy ads from Google, and you link to YouTube, which is Google-owned, your search rank is magically rewarded. Now, I don't fault Google one bit for running a great business, but let's be honest, that it's not the free love, peace, and understanding that it once was. This is called pay to play. Interestingly enough, there are many parallels in the pricing model of Google as far as hierarchy and rank as it was once in the Yellow Pages, which also rewarded pay-to-play, hierarchy, and rank. So same rules, different media. Social media has remained a fairly hostile place to actually try to sell at all. And I nearly laugh at the term social media marketing, since the admitted goal is only to win followers and friends who consume free information enough to consider you sort of a halfway credible citizen or company. Then they decide if they should contact you. That's not marketing. That's called PR, just as it was in the 1850s in the U.S. and way before that in Europe. Publicity, from the earliest definition, is to, quote, connect people through people, citing education and influence to guide response, end quote. Now, if that's not social media, I'm not sure what is. So basically hardly anything's new, and that's why I love giving these retrospectives, to catch you up and not to be so confused by this changing landscape. It actually exists in parallel in many other forms. Now, direct mail has continued to gain new devotees. People have begun rediscovering the virtues of online versus offline. Many online giants who still have, boardrooms in Wall Street to sort of pay homage to, they saw promising tests emerge from direct mail, and they started pursuing it more rabidly. Hudson Inc. reported this resurgence as early as 2011. Many raised eyebrows, like, what are you talking about? But we started putting more clients in it, and by 2014, direct mail was fully back, and the only people saying it was outdated were those who were, in fact, outdated. Well, now, today, catching us up, it is fully here. Let's face it, your real mailbox at the street or the house is the least crowded inbox. It has more valuable material in it, and that is the very same for your customers. But things have changed along the way big time in how people construct messages and aim those messages. You cannot just mail out some coupon with your logo on it and expect to get a return on your investment. You can't flood mailboxes with the cheapest and the broadest distribution, nor can you send an image-damaging message, which we're going to look at some today, and hope that you come out. You've got to be strategic. You've got to go from the headline to the offer to the actual stamp, the way the envelope looks, and there's a set of do's and don'ts that must be followed. We're going to cover all that, so this should be fun. And we will jump right on into this. I want you to make sure that you're directing your questions to coaches@HudsonInc.com. If I can today, I'm happy to get a few questions in. Otherwise, your coach will be intercepting some of those, and if they can answer it during the call, that's fine as well. Now, let's take a look at the second slide, the big significant contractor marketing problems out there. Now, there is huge confusion out there. I mean, you're a contractor, you're doing contracting work, you're pricing jobs, you're running equipment, you're training technicians, you're dealing with customers. I mean, why should you have to have a degree in marketing to actually choose the right marketing path? I mean, the changes in the Internet, in all the marketing, actually don't help you either. Just as soon as you think you figured out one thing, the target moves, and you've got to figure out something else. What once was taboo is now accepted, such as paying for Google Rank. I mean, that's what we didn't used to have to do, and now you do. What once was accepted is also taboo, such as telling your friends that you're in business and eventually hope to sell something. That's like not cool anymore. Yet there are dangers in the changes, because if you do not have a web marketing company that pays attention to the changes, you're going to get slapped without warning, and you will pay for the ignorance, whether it was your web provider, your IT person, or just you kind of walking around a little clueless. Understandably, you're going to pay for not following the online rules. Now, number 3, marketing that goes to everyone all the time instead of laser. That's a terrible idea. What we once considered as a big, broad net which was actually using the term broadcasting, broadcast media, and it was deemed valid. Yet now we use narrowcasting as a way to go deep and narrow, specifically targeting. This is why we say, and you may want to jot this down, specificity rules response. That means targeting, personalizing, customizing, or through technology you make that customization appear. It's really masked, but it appears customized, and you want to hit a very distracted person with a relevant message. And you see number 4 there, customer distraction. Distraction is growing bigger every day. Distracted driving is now the second biggest killer of teen drivers after alcohol, and both of those should put a bruise on all of our hearts. But, we see it all the time. There are clumps of people at a restaurant who claim to be together, but they're really not together because they're all glued to their screens. Now, getting their attention is a challenge. You must break through the clutter with clarity and specificity. And then under there, that last one, number 5, no system. It seems every contractor who calls Hudson Inc. is in need of some type of system. A system allows proactivity to reach your goals instead of being the constantly reactive contractor, always responding to input, responding to weather, responding to demand service. I mean, even that phrase alone implies chaos. Yet a system is formulaic. You choose targets, you choose sales goals, you fill in your slow seasons on purpose when the call rate is low, you keep your staff at an efficient pace, and you run that system with marketing. Such as, the first quarter you spend this on these pieces, targeted to these groups, to attain this result. Then you just tweak the machine instead of constantly being backed up on your heels, wondering what to do next. So, if you want higher sales and lower stress, you want a system, period. And direct mail really fits that. We're on slide number 3. Look at that. Why advanced marketers are using direct mail now? Less clutter. We just mentioned it. I mean, mail volume has dropped to the paid magazines, the expected invoices, the statements, the membership mailings, and chosen catalogs. I mean, people can't even afford to do blind mailings on catalogs like they used to. The era of junk mail now refers to email, not paid postal mail. Targetability. Unlike broad web, paid SEO, bought email list, direct mail can put a physical piece right in the hands of the exact consumer you want and not in the hands of those you don't. Lists are now incredibly sophisticated targeting tools, and we've been delving into this very deeply on picking lists, which we'll talk about later on in the call. And for contractors, just the simplest list would be age of home, age of homeowner, income, travel radius, and as mentioned, there's more about lists later, which really pretty much are predictive of how good your response is going to be. Next, speaking of response, is the return on investment. Nobody loves media spending unless the investment pays off. I get that. But sometimes the payoff is not just done in leads, which we'll also talk about. But unlike many media out there, contractors have far more reasons to approach the targetability and ROI as on a direct parallel course. When you get 2 main things right, just those 2, your ROI is going to skyrocket. So you're putting a laser-chosen message right in the hands of the laser-chosen recipient, right in the home where you're going to be doing the work, and nothing could be better than that. And that relates exactly to the presence. I mean, digital communications are deletable, they're forgettable, even if you do read them because they're just air. I mean, I still have books on my shelf that I read 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I couldn't tell you the eldest email I would have ever held on to, and I guarantee, even if it's buried in my inbox somewhere, it was long since forgotten for content, and I have no interest in looking back at it. Digital stuff is different from physical because physical gets touched. The physical mail at my home, like yours, is considered more valuable. And as opposed to years ago, it's rarely, if ever, discarded without at least some assessment. That same cannot be said for email. And the next to the last one up there is stealth. See, your competitors and mine sign up for our e-zines, they browse your website, they download your stuff, they watch for your ideas, what are you doing online, they watch your sales, when you're having offers. Now, direct mail, you are under the radar except to the homes you want. Now, we send out about 2 million pieces of mail for contractors each year, and it is only sent to highly targeted, lucrative, scrubbed lists on which virtually no competitor could ever even land. That's quite different than the digital world. Now, lead generation and branding, down at the bottom, nothing can pull strong leads like direct mail, and since they're from a targeted list, they're also better leads than some blind digital response, either from prospects or areas you don't want to serve. Now, as for branding, I ask this sometimes, but, how do you feel when you get that heartfelt e-birthday card versus the real one in the mail? That's a pretty obvious and common example. Real mail in the real home, it telegraphs an image that no digital piece can really match for impact. Now, this is not to say that digital doesn't have its place. It certainly does. And you will see how digital and direct mail can work perfectly together. But so many people got so enamored or brainwashed with everything digital, they wanted approval to make sure that it's fine to digital to venture back into the offline world. And here you look at that next slide, you can see these quotes from eBay and from Angie's List, how they're going back into direct mail in a big way. No need for you to listen to uninformed people telling you, oh, offline's dead, nobody does direct mail. Those people are incredibly outdated. And if you look also at that very next slide, talking about J. Crew mailing 40 million catalogs, and even Google focused on direct mail as a primary method of selling its own AdWords campaign. Why? It's getting increasingly harder to be seen online, and direct mail is far more targetable. This is from Google. So I think pretty much the jury is back and has voted in favor of this as a very, very relevant media. And we still want to push contractors in the frame of relevance to mix online and offline, and today it will all be about how to get the most out of direct mail. Now, if you take a look at that next slide about the response rates and ROI per medium, I think it's very easy to see without me spending a lot of time on the figures there. A house list versus a bought list. A house list just means your customer list, and obviously that's always going to outperform. We preach that dramatically. We'll talk a little bit about lists and how to mimic your house list. But if you look at it, it's got a 11-time difference in response in direct mail and a 13-time difference in response from a bought list. So clearly direct mail pays. Now, your response rate is really going to be highest when you match two elements, and those two elements are the message and the market. And the market is the chosen group of recipients. We are way past the day of just sending a bunch of junk out and hoping it sticks, or just saying, oh, just pick everybody within a 10-mile drive radius. That is a terrible idea unless you're in a really, really small community. And even then, it probably needs some strategy, because the money in direct mail mostly goes to the post office. It's not to the printer, and it's sure not to the people creating the ad. But I will tell you, a junk ad, a junk letter, a junk postcard is going to cost you the very same as a very good one to send to that list. The only difference is the result, as we often say. And we're going to talk a lot about message choice and market choice. So first, let's look at 5 different messages there on number 7. There's image, which connotes quality. It connotes image, quality, and higher prices, if you want to fill in those blanks there. That is one type of marketing. Branding, or TOMA, which often works together with image, TOMA's top-of-mind awareness, it brings recognition through repetition. The 2 R words brings recognition through repetition, meaning small, oft-repeated ads and the little TOMA ads, but branding and image are also aligned. Now, retention is for referrals and recurring revenue. So you've got repeat sales, referrals, and recurring revenue. Excuse me, I obviously have not had enough coffee for this call, but that's what retention will do for you. These are post-transactional messages that you would send after a sale, after a new customer comes on board, or even to your longest-held customer that you would mail or contact between 4 and 12 times per year with a combination of live, digital, and direct mail. But direct response, that's where we're going to spend a good bit of time here today, is purely for lead generation. Lead generation is direct response and lead generation go hand in hand. Direct response is salesmanship, and that we will spend a good bit of time on lead gen today because I know that's very, very important. You cannot overlook the others. And at the bottom, I've got institutional, which we'll see a couple of examples of today. And institutional is just junk. It's just the crud that you see contractors do, and misguided as they are, not that they're bad contractors, but in a marketing sense, they're very misguided by trying to put everything in every ad, every time. Their websites look like business cards filled with crud. Every billboard they put has everything they've ever done. Every direct mail piece has everything. I mean, it's just they just cram it full of such vagaries and banalities and attempts to try to skip across the surface. There's very few specifics. And again, we will look at examples like that today. Institutional is by far the lowest form of advertising out there, and it will not get you leads, and it will definitely drop your image. Now, we're going to focus a little bit on the direct response as mentioned through direct mail, and you'll see the branding of the image as well. So the question you may have is, how do you build good direct response? If direct response, there on slide number 8, it's all about salesmanship in any media. I mean, it's in every single media out there. Direct response is certainly not limited to direct mail. It is every single type of media out there, online and off. And the common elements within there are the headline, where you can bring a pain. You can also bring up a curiosity or a question, making an offer within the headline oftentimes, but all direct response is going to have an offer of some type in it. That's how they get their name, direct response. You were responding to an offer. Number 3 is social proof, meaning building credibility through other users. It could be through endorsements or memberships or trade associations or wherever you might want to call yourself an affinity partner or member, but largely through the testimonials and the actual results. If you have energy savings results or homes with outdoor sentinel lighting have a 16% drop in burglary rates. I mean, anything where you can cite specifics and statistics to support your claim from a third-party source is good. Number 4, how. The clarity of the offer and the clarity of how they are to respond to the offer. You have to be very specific in direct response. It is truly a sales presentation tightly condensed into whatever the media limitations you have. A guarantee. Oftentimes we'll be creating ads in web copy or even web videos for contractors, and just to beat the response of whatever they've had, we just put in the guarantee that the contractor already had and automatically get a higher response rate. And the limitations of time or quantity, and that's S of U, means sense of urgency. That means to give people a deadline. An offer without a deadline is not an offer, and those need to be remembered. So you need to balance your marketing out. So direct response is what we'll talk about today, but you're going to have other forms of advertising that need to pull in and out. Now, if you look at slide 9, you'll see direct response. Does it work for contractors? And these are just a couple that I grabbed. I actually pulled straight out of one fairly recent file. And you'll see that direct response contractors are saying, they were just surprised at the response rate, how good the response was to their particular offer. You've got a little bit smaller contractor who did $17,000 and change in 2 days, another who added $200,000 the first 2 months. So vastly different business sizes, and of course it works for them. and we want it to work for you. And so here's some of the methods on how. Now, here's how to make sure it doesn't work. If you'll take a look at slide number 10, you will see that particular attempt, I guess it is, that's a postcard, an attempt at being sort of a direct response because there's a slight offer in there, and it's just photos of an air conditioner and a furnace. And again, I'm only picking this particular example. Obviously, the same would apply to electrical or plumbing. We've got some examples of that coming. And we did change the company name to protect the guilty there, but this is not about hacking someone's attempt, but I mean, this is an expensive piece to produce, an expensive piece to mail. And the horrible thing is, I mean, there's almost no way it's not going to fail. And you'll look, and if we said the elements for a good direct response was a headline, well, you'll see there's no headline. There's not even really an offer. There's no compelling reason to call. I see a discount of $500, but that's like meaningless. I mean, how am I supposed to know? Is that a little or a lot? I mean, $500 is not a proven price point of anything. I have nothing to compare that to. Preseason is not a sense of urgency or a limit because it's not defined. I mean, what does preseason mean? When did it start or end? And the free estimate, by the way, was determined here in 2004, so over 10 years ago, I mean, way over, to be a dead phrase. I mean, it was once a good phrase, now it's completely rotten. We've had this comment in our marketing material and coaching materials for years that, dead phrases that are completely has-beens. And if you look, there's no call to action, there's no guarantee, there's no social proof. So, again, I'm not trying to pick on an ad, but I'm just telling you, if you think an ad like that is going to work, you're sadly mistaken, and you being on this type of coaching program is telling you why. Now, here's another one on number 11, also guaranteed to fail. You went from one with too little copy to one with way, way too much. And plus, it's incredibly boring. This is some sort of three-part, what would be a Z-fold. It would be a mailer on the far right, and then it would fold and tab. And this really just tells me too much. I mean, one of the industry's most comprehensive precision tune-up. It should be tune-ups, but regardless of my picking on that, it's just a rotten headline. It's not compelling. There's all this other jargon down there. I mean, I don't even know what I'm looking at. It's some long list of things they're supposedly going to do. It's just very, very weak overall. Now, this is scarcely salvageable as is. When we get these examples in, we're sometimes asked to do just a rewrite or an adjustment. And the ones you just saw are not salvageable. Sometimes they are. But we just change them completely or pull something out of our archives for people to use out of the marketing vault. And these are just doomed to fail. There's really almost no chance that they'll get anything above a 0.02, 0.03 response rate, and that's just not going to do it. So let's go and look quickly at the first thing that most people overlook, and that's on number 12, which is getting the mail opened. I mean, if your email or your letter doesn't get opened, you're going to get a zero response. Now, that's pretty obvious now talking about it, but a lot of people just completely overlook that, and they'll put a great offer that was labored over with the dumbest subject line or a spammable subject line, which is worse because then nobody sees it, doesn't even get a chance, or they'll just stick it in a plain Jane old company envelope with the label on it and hope for the best. Well, this one has got the 5 elements to drive the open rates for the envelope. Number 1 is the size. Is it undersized or oversized? Please pick either standard or oversized. Do not cheap out for smaller. Even on the postcard, when they try to sell you this dumb 4 1/4 by 6, don't get it. Don't fall for that. The tests have been done for decades on the pathetic response rates there. You want to match the fonts in addressee and sender. Watch your logo use. This is called shielded. I did not want people to know it was advertising mail. Sometimes I do. This one I did not. No labels. Use live postage. You can also buy live bulk. A lot of people don't know that, but you actually can have a bulk rate stamp affixed. And teaser copy, which down there says, I never thought I'd be writing you about this. And you'll see the actual piece that he's referring to later on in today's call. This is an actual piece, by the way, not just created for this webinar, but actual piece with actual results. And this next piece was not what was in there, but it is just an example of a different type of service piece where ugly direct response kills the pretty ad. And if you remember the pretty ad earlier with the 2 photos of the outdoor equipment, this is the one that beat it up. The results couldn't have been more different, says the contractor, who I was not able to use his name because he had co-op and he didn't want to tick off his distributor. But he ended up getting $135,000 more in sales plus 211 agreements, which far outweighed his co-op, basically meaning that the elements in that ad on the right, which is a letter, of course, from the headline to the red arrowed components, those are the ones that, to me, really drove the response rate way up. So he mailed the same identical list back to back, one with the pretty piece, the so-called pretty piece that was really terrible, and this, and $135,000 in sales different season to season using the same list. So that's why you need to consider the message as incredibly important in this. And your guarantees, sometimes people are like, well, how can I guarantee things? Well, Hudson Inc. has a whole litany of guarantees, from a return on investment guarantee for tune-up service for first-time customers to a drip-free guarantee for plumbing to a no-shot guarantee, a freeze-free guarantee. I mean, all these different guarantees just to say that you're as good as you say you are, and you're putting it in writing. That's really what a guarantee is. It's just a statement of your credibility and your competence. So, anyway, next I want to show there is an electrical example as well, another one with which we had results on. And the point of showing you the left versus the right, and of course it's impossible to read the right one, but I'll just say it has all the elements that we just covered. And the point in showing this is just putting anything in the mail and calling that marketing is the same as like throwing anything in your kitchen in a pot and call that being a chef. It's just not the same. Or saying anybody with a set of tools and a truck is a contractor. I mean, it's just not the same. There's quality, there's craftsmanship, there's strategy involved, and, it's upsetting when I hear people say, oh, I tried direct mail or whatever media and it didn't work. Well, the media is not the sole source of the quality judgment. It's the response rate. And on this one you see 5,221 pieces mailed. Again, identical list, 16 calls with the one on the left and 51 with the one on the right. Probably not our best response rate, but nonetheless over 3 times better than its former one at the exact same cost. So you're getting 3 times the response. That's where your money starts paying you back for paying attention to the message. So that's direct response. And let's click on over a little bit toward image. So on the direct response, which will summarize the end on how to actually get a system in place for yourself. The image, a lot of times people say, well, how am I supposed to get higher prices, or how can I win jobs against cheap competitors, as you see on number 15? Well, how you do that is by looking at your marketing as a spokesperson. Your technician that arrives at the house is a spokesperson. Your CSR that answers the phone is the spokesperson right then. So all your front line should be considered reflective of the quality within your company. And nowhere is your front line bigger, broader, deeper, and more public than your marketing. I mean, sure, once you've won the lead and you're in the house, you'd better do a darn good job or your image goes down. But think of all the pieces that are out there, your trucks all the time, your yard signs and your billboards and all the different things, your website. What does it say about you quality-wise? Well, what all it says about you, let's keep this in mind, is not purely for lead gen. Every dime you spend in marketing is not supposed to give you a return for lead generation. It's just not that way. And it is very short-sighted and very much a get-rich-quick sort of mentality to assume that it does. Start paying attention to the ads out there that don't have offers and the ones that are meant to connote quality or to connote a positioning within the market. Now, the more you run nonstop offers, making sale, the closer you become to Joseph A. Bank, who I've referred to many, many times as a very public example of overdoing direct response. I mean, they did it for 8 years in a row without taking a breath, and their stock purchase by Men's Warehouse has now been written down 80%. It's more about the image, the shattered image that they got through constantly running offer after offer after offer after offer, assuming that lead gen was the path to a fortune nonstop. That's why Hudson Inc. preaches so much about image and positioning and about retention. You hear me probably yell louder about retention largely because that's the biggest hole in your marketing budget, but image has a place because it brings up your prices instantly. It brings up your attraction rate. Look, nobody wants to hire a non-professional. When you see a non-professional ad and a company doesn't know who you are, they can only assume you're a non-professional. When they see amateurish-looking work on a postcard like we saw or on a web page like you see constantly, and they don't know you, and that's all they have to judge you by, that is exactly the taste that they have in their mouth, which is they're not very professional. This looks pretty amateur. Follow that up with, yes, I think I'd like to have them in my home. Doesn't happen. Keep your image high, because I tell you something, here's the cool part. You don't have much of an image competition to beat, and that sounds kind of snarky for me to say, but it's no secret that contractors do not have the best public image. I mean, I cringe when I see the Sting shows just like you do. I'm not applauding it. I'm just telling you the facts, that the image is low, so beating it is a fairly easy target for you. Now, let's look at a weak image example as we motor on through. Here's a guaranteed to fail on number 16. I did change that phone number there, and of course we've eradicated the license, but in any event, I mean, we got this in here to critique. I mean, the contractor knew this thing was underperforming or he wouldn't have come to us, but this is the piece that was sent out, and it's weak, and I can't judge the character nor the integrity of the person at the company, but I can't judge the image that they're sending out. And I just don't even begin to understand the array of photos at the bottom. I presume that means that's good work, and I can tell you I'm more familiar than most, but about 95% of the people would look at those pictures and be thoroughly baffled. A confused mind always says no, by the way, and a confused mind would be the result of that. Now, if you look at the next one, just jiggle the handle. Yeah, we can actually put a list of services that you do, a little bit more of an all-purpose ad and an ad, but, we're talking about the kid and the quote, the just jiggle the handle, and the kid hating having to deal with plumbing in any capacity that involves something that resembles work, and it's more kind of fun and talking about family and cleanliness and hygiene, and the whole reason it's not trying to sell your soldering skills. Lord, if you're in the house, we're going to assume you can kind of light the torch and melt the solder. We get that part, but this is about appealing to family and family attraction, and children in photos will outpull equipment in photos 10 to 1. Same with your trucks, I'm sorry to say, unless you're selling trucks. But that's how we look at image. And on number 18, you'll see how Better Homes and Gardens looks at image, and nearly 80% had an image tie-in with the entire reason that they called. If you add up those middle two, the image reputation and image endorsement, those two are the ones I'm talking about. Of course, the 78A are the ones who are customers, but they're also influenced by these other items. And fortunately, down there at the bottom, the one that barely measures is price. So you're thinking and misthinking that it's all about the price and getting the job is maybe related to the fact that you're running marketing that looks like you're trying to appeal to the cheap customer. Think about it. Does General Insurance look like you're trying to appeal to a cheap customer? Yes, they do, and for a reason. Does PCmatic, the antivirus software, look like they're trying to appeal to a low-budget customer? Yes, they do, for the exact reason. They're not trying to compete in the higher price game, and by the same token, does Rolex or Porsche ads look like they're trying to attract a price shopper? Of course not. So if your ads give the illusion that you're sort of a little bit amateur and a little bit cheap, and you're constantly advertising specials and money off and stuff, you're going to be seen as the cheap contractor. So don't complain that you get price shoppers. You fished with the very bait that you got. So that's it. Now, let's look on 19 real quick. And let's see, I'm going to check and see if any questions have come through to coaches@hudsoninc.com. I've asked them to send any up to me that might be stumpers, and if you get that question, feel free to send that in. Happy to answer live or let a coach handle it. 3 ways to multiply response rates. Now, this is pretty cool. This is something that people don't look at oftentimes. They think, okay, well, hey, we sent out 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 letters, and here we're waiting on the phone to ring, and awesome, it happens. That is not even close to the end of the value of that mailing. Not even close. You'll see, number 1, the call behind. There's a script coming, by the way, that I'm going to give you. The call behind is very, very valuable. If you can afford to do it, fill up your CSR's time. Someone with a nice phone voice who can call after a piece. I'll give you the script to say. Sequential mailing. This is one that, goodness gracious alive, this is basically the foundation of Hudson Inc. when we began. Sequential mailing turned into sequential emailing, which turned into the product launch formula, which turned into what is now called the funnel, click funnel, sales funnel. You hear a lot of different terms online. And when people talk about funnels or sequences online, a funnel basically just meaning that there's a broader general part at the top and it gets narrower as it goes down toward the buyers. That is nothing that the direct mailers had not figured out 30 years ago, which is sequences work, probably 25-ish years ago, that sequences do work, and they work very, very well. We're going to show you a very brief sequence upcoming. Basically, it just means that you're following up a mailing with a little bit tighter message to a tighter group, and you relay information in your follow-up piece that connects it to the first piece. It's called linking, technically. And then the last one is the email, plus the social post, plus direct mail kicks. Those 3 together, if you can just keep those 3 together, you don't have to get terribly super sophisticated. Hudson Inc. will be happy to run this as far as you want, but those 3 and number 3 work extremely well. There's a sample of all those coming. Here's the call behind script. I'm not going to read it to you. You can read it as well or better than I can, but look at the call behind typically returns 2.8 times the initial mail response. You're going to get a decent number of service appointments out of your normal response, and if you can multiply that 2.8 times, you'll also end up with a very high closing ratio on higher equipment quotes. So sending out a service piece when people go, oh, well, I don't want to sell those cheap preventive maintenance or just a cheap sort of down and dirty plumbing or electrical piece just to go in for an inspection. I mean, why would I do that? Well, this is exactly why you do it, because the sequence is important, and saying hello and being there to provide a high value, low cost, at least to the consumer at that moment, service opens the door, figuratively and literally, to more sales. So that's exactly why you would do it. And I highlighted the parts in that script, the blue text. Those are the sales close, the soft closes. Those are very, very important parts of that. So if you change the script yourself, it is very important to keep the blue parts intact. Now let's take a look at that example as we move on through. And goodness gracious, we are rounding the corner in today's call. I hope it's been instructional for you. We've got a very little bit here left, kind of the fun part. Here's the contractor that opened up a new service, was unsure how it would be received in his town, where he had more than a little bit of competition, over 100 licensed contractors in that trade in his town alone. And he had been in electrical, then he expanded into plumbing, he expanded into heating and air, and I would hate to be competing against these people because they are of a take-no-prisoner sort of style, very, very professionally done. They do nothing halfway, and they are fabulous marketing students, as well as many, many other things. But this one, mailing number 1, they sent it to about 6,600 what they would call second-tier prospects. And that means, well, there's no need to go into technicalities of that, but just assume it to mean a slightly lower average ticket with slightly broader limitations to the mailing. We knew we were sort of going a little broader to include those 6,600 people. And we sent a broad mailing announcing the addition of that new service. And in mailing number 2, was sent to the first-tier prospects. These are good customers, long-time customers. It included no prospects at all. They were all active customers. Mailing number 1 included some prospects as well. And he, with 0 HVAC customers, 0 sales in that, we chose a launch date, bang, and there you see that he did $200,000 in sales the very first month. So not a bad result. And it did shake some people up in the town who'd had a 20, 30-year head start on them who weren't doing nearly as much business. Now, the integrated strategy, if you want to just take a look at a little bit of a graphic here on number 22, you will see basically an email runs kind of parallel along with the web report, and maybe even social post would be there running parallel, plus or minus a couple of days of your direct mail to a very targeted list. And those will all run out, make the offer, make the announcement. It's a multimedia push, but again, you're using very inexpensive media online, but it's being supported offline, so it's not looked at as junk or clutter, because it's being supported with the offline piece. And if you use this consistent messaging, what we call the integration strategy, you're going to find that it's going to increase your image, increase your penetration, increase your exposure, and thereby increase your response rate. So that is a very, very important strategy to keep in mind. If you want to run an integrated strategy, please call or email your coach. That's exactly what we do here. We take the very pieces, some of which you have seen as examples, and we have put them in place from the power suites and the different plumbing or electrical pieces that we have, and we put an integrated strategy together and actually push the go button and watch what happens. And here's what happened. On number 23, we actually used 5 total pieces. You'll see there the direct mail, the email, the social is mentioned, the landing page. And the landing page, don't let that spook you. It's basically just a continuation of the email thrown online. I mean, you can set up a separate landing page. It doesn't even have to be connected to your website. I mean, this has gotten to be pretty much backyard ability nowadays. I mean, it's very, very easy to create a separate landing page, or what they would call a splash page or a squeeze page, just that all it would have is just a little bit of information for a temporary amount of time, and it could point to your website. It's very easy to do. But you will see that then the bill stuffer, this is a down and dirty free piece. We just created a bill stuffer for every single invoice that went out over the next 30, 60, 90 days announcing this new service, and bang, they didn't pay a penny more for the postage, obviously, because the bill was going out, and that actually generated tons of response in and of itself. So you can see his testimonial, $200,000, and they are doing extremely well based on that very short, very simple, very easy to implement strategy. Now, let's take a look at number 24 as we round the very last lap here and talk about lists. You can see the 5 best response lists. We actually have a longer report that you can get at the very end if you request that. On the top target list for contractors, we explain who they are. There are actually many, many more than just these 6, but I chose these 6. And the only points I want to make on this is that they're ranked in order, basically, but as I mentioned, there's probably close to 20 different lists, and I threw one on here that's horrible, but the very bottom one. But if you look, the active customer list is the best. A mirrored list, meaning like Facebook would call it lookalike, Google considers it retargeting. These are all using current data of likelihood of response, and direct mail does it better than any of the onliners, but the onliners, basically that's what you got, and it's as good as you can get. It's getting more sophisticated, but we use a mirrored list, meaning that we take the similarities and commonalities out of your customer list and build a separate list, and the ideal, and then the reactivation, meaning the people who sort of dropped off your list. Let's say they're over 4 years old, they hadn't transacted an invoice with you in over 4 years, they're inactive, and we like to reactivate those. So here's the ideal list. About 75% or 80% is your active customers. Now, see, some of those may have shopped and some of them may have left within the past 4 years, but we take them. A mirrored list, about 10 to 25%, and reactivation of about 5 to 10%. Any blend of that, we can build that list for you here to get the ideal setup. And that's how we work. The new home buyers, 5, 50, and 5. Let me explain that number briefly. If you've moved in the past few years, you know that like the second you put your last piece of luggage down and the second you write this huge check to the movers and they're driving out, the next thing that shows up is like 15 pieces from Home Depot and Lowe's and every other one of those home improvement type places. And I know contractors love seeing Home Depot and Lowe's show up in the mailbox. I know it just makes y'all giddy. But those companies obviously know that the 555, meaning in the first 5 months of a new move, a customer is going to spend 50% of their entire home improvement purchases as they will over the next 5 years. In other words, you're all like hooked up into your house and you're putting in the new sink and the paint and the roof and the landscaping and the lighting and you're fixing the cracked driveway and all this stuff, and you're going to spend 50% of every dime you'd spend over the next 5 years, but you're going to spend that in the next 5 months. That's why they're camped out in your mailbox, and that's a very good thing for you to know with the new move lists. Don't think of them as just broke people who don't have a dime to spend. I can assure you they do. Chosen well. Now, putting it all together, we're on number 25 here. You've got a direct mail budget, about 14 to 18% of the total marketing. Go get with your coach to explain that and sort of position you a little bit better. It takes a tiny bit more delving into where you are as a company to determine how much your total marketing budget should be in direct mail, but that's about where it should be. Some will be higher. In almost no instance lower than that, but certainly it could be higher depending. Create the mailing pieces is next. We like this mix. Direct response at about 70%, image and branding at about 10%, and retention at about 20%, and retention at about 10%. That's a pretty broad swipe at that, but it's fairly accurate. And plus it gives you a standard by which to measure. Remember, 0% for that institutional crud. You're just not going to do that anymore. We just can't let you do that anymore. And if you spend all your money in image and branding saying, oh, I don't like making offers and I don't want to look salesy, well, I mean, that's fine. And I don't mean to like mock that voice like I disapprove. But if you do have that position in your mind, just rest assured you're not going to get the leads as if you would sort of lighten up and say, no, I kind of do want to push that button a little bit. So when you talk with your coach or talk with me, we're going to sort of guide you along that path, with the caveats and the case study information as well. Then schedule 4, 6, or 12 a year. If you're doing customer retention with us, you're going to be moving to 4. If you're just doing 2, I can tell you that's a little bit outdated. So 4 on the customer retention side, and then you spot in the others. You can have, an offer per season, and there you're already up to 8, and then another 4 times you can have your image pieces if you want, or your referral request, or any other type of thing you want. But, 4, 6, or 12 is about the cadence by which you should be doing direct mail. And this is not me trying to sell you stamps. Lord knows I don't get a commission on stamps. But it is trying to say that you should be taking direct mail very seriously, and you need to have the pieces to fill in. And if you'll take a look at slide 26, you'll see that we can do that for you. We are soft launching a program here, and a hard launch is very soon to follow where it would be broadly offered to the general market. But for the coaching program here, we can have a done-for-you automatic direct mail lead program. I typically don't want to, quote, sell on the coaching calls. You're already a paying member, so you get plenty. But I just want to announce that, we can help you with this program and automate it because we already have the content. Those of you who are our customer retention customers, we already have your list. And if we don't have your list, it's the easiest thing in the world to get. I mean, we like I said, we do millions upon millions of pieces a year, and over time have done 30 million pieces. So I think we fairly well got the list bit down, and we have the content. So we can help engineer and choose the right promotion, customize it for you, including the envelope like we talked about. We'll consult and select an ideal list mix, probably following close to that 80-20 we looked at earlier. mostly your customers. But if you just want to shop, I mean, if you just want to say, oh, no, I'm going into a new town, no one there knows me, I need to get a piece out to completely new prospects, yeah, we do that too. I mean, we understand that not everybody has the exact same requirements, and you just need to get with your coach and let us pick a list for you, and then we'll print and schedule and mail it for you. We'll do the whole business, and it's our pieces. Now, if you need us to do a custom piece, please keep in mind I'm not inexpensive, but sorry, that's the deal. I do offer a very good guarantee, as I coach you in doing. If you want me to write it, it'll be $2,500 a page, but the chances of me having to write you a brand new piece are like almost none, because we have hundreds of pieces here ready to use and ready to be licensed to you in your area. So I can assure you, if you pick something, landscaping, lighting, drainage issue, irrigation, sewer, toilet, bathroom remodel, IAQ, anything with heating, anything with cooling, basically anything with humidity, anything with from solar to geothermal, we've done it. So I could spend the next 15 minutes trying to rattle off the categories, but just rest assured that the chances of me having to do a purely custom piece are fairly low. And quite honestly, it takes quite a while to get the custom pieces back because I stay a little busy with that. But that was a long explanation for a short point. Forgive me. The main thing is we can do it for you. You just email your coaches at HudsonInc.com or give us a call, or you can visit that link there, which is more confusing for me to say than for you to actually look at. But you can visit that link, and you will see that you'll just go straight to a little 1, 2, 3 question piece about the category of business you're in, what you want to sell, and the approximate size of your database, and bang, we're off to the races, and we can handle it for you, which is kind of cool. We can plug in a program of the 4, 6, or 12 in my ever and never-ending quest to come off as more for you than for us. Let's start a little bit slowly. Let's take a look at what you want to sell this season. Pluck something out of the air if you like, but your historical sales data will be a better guide than either of us guessing. And if it's preventive service, if it's big-ticket replacements from panels to complete cooling or heating equipment, whatever it may be, and let's just go for it. And we will help make a strategic selection on both the message and the market. And again, that is the magic that happens. We're happy to test it against anything else you've ever done in your life. We cannot back down from any sort of challenge like that. So if you've got a piece that's done very, very well, if we can't outperform that, we'll refund all of your license fee. And in 16 years, that has yet to happen, but there will be a day that it does happen. And, when it happens, hats off to that copywriter or strategist. I want to meet that person, and that'll be cool. So, we all learn as we go forward. Let's see. So now past that, and basically, remember, those of you who are on our customer retention program, we're basically about done needing your list, and those of you who have a power suite, we're basically done needing your content. You already got some awesome content. We're just going to go through there and pick one for you. Now, to summarize, let's see. We have got how to use your direct mail now. Basically, the first thing you really want to do is analyze your current customer list for the highest value buyers. I mentioned in a coaching call or a podcast, rather, with Mike Aguilera, we got really into a sidestep, though he has only grown a $24 million company, so I'll say that he probably has learned a thing or two about marketing along the way. But we got into this long thing about looking at customer lists and buyers and analyzing who's out there. And there couldn't be anything more important. People think I just sit around and I stare at a blank screen until I come up with clever words that make people do things against their will. And the truth of the matter is, no, I'm thinking of the person first. I'm thinking of who am I writing to, talking to, relating to, assessing, helping, encouraging. And that's really where my head has got to go, and that's where I'm asking you to take your first step. Who are the highest value buyers to you? And if your answer is, everybody in my town with a toilet, I promise you, you're horribly misguided. or everybody who lives indoors and likes their lights and their heating and cooling. That is not your target. There are many, many, many more things about that person that need to be known, and it's living in your database right now. Who buys what? How frequently do they buy it? What do they pay for it? Do they ever refer people to you? Those are big things. Next, we want to clone that list. You want list mirrors, and your coach can help you here. And again, whether or not we do your direct mail for you, that's fine, whatever you choose. But call a coach here, email your coach, get on a schedule. Heck, I may breeze by and pick up the phone and pretend I know what I'm talking about. But you want to create the list mirrors based on relevant data, and that's fairly easily done. We're not going to, I can assure you, I'm not putting on a lab coat and spending 4 days trying to figure out the behavioral characteristics of your buyer. We know pretty well, just like a fisherman knows, about exactly the temperature, the depth, and the speed of the retrieve in order to get the result that they want. And if Mark Hughes's on the call, thank you for that that parallel thought that you and I had a great conversation on. But that's how you're picking your list mirrors. You want to let's go clone your customers. There's more out there, and they can be won. I promise you, they can be won. Send a proven direct response and image branding piece. That's the 4, 6, or 12 per year. Come on, pick up a cadence. I can guarantee you nothing's going to happen, or very little will happen, if you don't schedule it. If you told somebody to build you a house, but they had no budget and no deadline, guess what? You'd go broke and they'd never finish. You have got to put deadlines. You've got to put parameters and limitations on things. And let's just say that you're going to start off with 4. You get with your coach and say, bang, let's do a spring piece or a summer or a fall or a winter. And you're going to go forward with that. Put it on the calendar. Bang. Make it happen. And we would love to help you with that. And lastly, watch your sales rise predictably according to your goals and schedule. That's what direct mail can do for you folks. This is not some strange voodoo art form that doesn't really have any science behind it. It has tons of math and tons of proof, and the ability for you to use it is as easy as you saying yes. In fact, most of you are almost done with it. All you need to do is just call your coach here, talk through your list and the pieces and the message. If you're going to do it yourself, which is cool, share with us a piece that you'd like to try, and we'll be brutally honest, with emphasis on the brutal part, if we think you're about to waste your money. If you want us to do it for you, that's a great option too. So we're here for any of the above. I hope today has been a good lesson for you. It's been fun for me. We direct your questions, your inquiries, your comments back at coaches@hudsoninc.com. And again, be looking out for that survey from us, sort of getting a little bit, checking the temperature of what it is you'd like to see or hear more of in your entire coaching program, not just in these calls. But until then, I am 1 minute past the top of the hour, and as anybody who knows me, by gosh, I'm on time, which is a big falsehood. If my wife was listening, she'd be laughing. But we do call this your club, and we want to hear from you. So hope this was of value to you today. And with that, we will talk to you next time.